Ratios and rates and proportions. Let's start with how do we compare? We've done enough of these in class together that you have a good background. I still want to make sure I go over some of these with you so you don't look at this, it's a new format, it's different than we've done it before and get confused. Anyhow, we'll do numbers 1 and 2 together. Anything that you may not be sure about, you can look up here. I prefer personally to write my ratios in fraction form, but you're welcome to put them in, using the colon if you want. Number 1, your school's newspaper staff is made up of 6 girls and 10 boys. What is the ratio of girls to boys? It's really important that you put them in the right order. So if the ratio is girls to boys, then you'll write 6 to 10. Yeah, 6 to 6, right? How about I make that look more like a 10? There we go. Or you could put 6 to 10. So you'd say the ratio of girls to boys is 6 to 10. Okay. Number 2, on the newspaper staff mentioned in problem 1, what is the ratio of boys to total staff members? Aha. So boys to total. All right, that's a little different. So we'll do boys first. There are 10 boys. Total. So let's see, there are 6 girls and 10 boys. Total, that would be 16. So the ratio of boys to total staff members would be 10 to 16. You can write it that way or that way. It does say to write the ratio in lowest terms. So what we'll do is go back and reduce these. So 6 to 10 would become 3 to 5. This would be 3 to 5. 10 to 16, you reduce by 2, would be 5/8. Or this would be 5 to 8. So I'm going to circle my final answers. Remember, you don't have to have it both ways. On your own paper, just pick one and write it that way. When you reduce, I prefer to write mine as fractions because it's easier to see with reducing. It's not, to me, I don't intuitively want to reduce numbers written like that. But when I see a fraction and I see them written like that, I just naturally want to reduce. This is very simple. Follow those directions and you've got it. Do it in the right order. Now on this one, now that we've gotten into the habit of writing ratios, now let's work on making them proportionate. We'll do, 3, 6, and we'll do 3, 5, and 6 together. Number 3. During a book sale, 1 dozen books cost $4.99. At that rate, how much would 60 books cost? So we have books over cost. Up here, it has you writing the labels on all of your proportions. You don't need to do that. Just write them one time, and then you know from there on out. All right, so number of books, cost. This one says 1 dozen books. This one says 60 books. Okay, so we want to know individual books. How many is a dozen? 12. So we've got 12 books, cost $4.99. I don't use my dollar signs in my work. I wait till the answer. At this rate, how much would 60 books cost? Where do I put the 60? Do I put it on top or the bottom? Well, the top is books, the bottom is cost. So I would put 60 on the top. We want to find out the cost for 60 books. There are two ways that you can solve this. I will show you the more difficult way first, and then I'll show you the method that I would use. But I want to make sure you you know that there isn't just one way. With any of these, there's multiple ways. You could even reduce if these were reducible. They're not, but you know, if this had been, let's see, this had been $4.98, yeah, then they could have both been reduced by 3, but it's not, so you cannot reduce that. Anyhow, so the first method I'm going to use is the traditional cross multiplication method. Here we go. So that would give you 12 times C equals 499 times 60. Now I already multiplied that out right here. 499 times 60 is $299.40, just to save on time. So it gives us $299.40. So now I have to solve for C. So I have one more step to do. To get C by itself, I do the inverse. The inverse of times 12 is divide by 12. So we'll divide both sides by 12. That cancels out. We're left with C equals. And look here. I already did this. Well, I started it, didn't I? I didn't finish. So $299.40 divided by 12. I started off, I got 24. That's right, I didn't finish, so let's go ahead and finish now. So we want to know how many times 12 goes into 114. And I was trying out 12 times 9, 10. So it's going to be 9 times. 9 times 12 is 108. 14 minus 8 is 6. I could group 4 to 6. Bring down the 0. I know that 12 goes into 65 times. I've got that memorized. 12, 24, 36, 48, 60. So 5 times. And then it's 0, so I can stop here. Put up my decimal and go back to my problem. That is $24.95. Now, this would have taken a lot longer if I had actually had to do all of the computation, but since I'd done most of it beforehand, it was quicker. But that's a bit of a tedious step, and it'll work. It'll give you the right answer as long as your math is right, and it may be the method that you prefer. My preferred method is equivalent fractions. So look here. 12 over 499, I'm just rewriting it again since I drew the purple marks on them, equals 60 over C. Well, I know that 12 times 5 is 60. So then 499 times 5 will be C. This, to me, is so much easier. It might not have worked for you. If you didn't already know, if you didn't recognize quickly that 12 goes into 65 times, this might have not been an easier method for you. So that's why I say you have options. You choose what works best. Anyhow, so 499 times 5, which I did already. I got $24.95. So 499 times 5 is $24.95. So both methods will give me the same amount. And as long as you perform the math correctly, then whichever method you choose will give you the same. But remember, you have some flexibility, and you can choose what works better for you. Okay, let's look down at number 5. The late fee for a book is $2 a day. How much would the fee be when a book is 2 weeks late? Wow, that's a lot of days. So we have fee and we have days. All right, so the fee is $2 for 1 day. Now it says how much would the fee be in 2 weeks late? Now, that number, does it go on top or bottom? It's weeks, so it's going to go on the bottom. Now, it says 2 weeks. Am I going to put a 2 here? That wouldn't make sense, would it? It wouldn't give us the right answer because it's not 2. Because this is days. We want to know how many days. Well, how many days are in 2 weeks? Well, I hope you know that there are 7 days in 1 week, so that means 14 days. There we go. So we want to know what the fee would be. So I think that you can immediately recognize that this one is very simple. 1 times 14 is 14. 2 times 14 is 28. You could do that in your head. So the fee for 2 weeks would be $28. This is a pretty easy one now that I think about it because it was already in the unit rate per day. So it's always easy when they're in unit rate. But I wanted to do this one with you specifically because this is days and this is weeks. And I want to make sure that you don't just see the number and write the number and not think about what does that mean. 2 weeks means 14 days. If you had put a 2 there, then you would have found out how much it would cost for 2 late days, and that's not correct. Number 6, it costs the library $112 to replace 2 missing volumes of an encyclopedia set. How much would it cost to replace 5 missing volumes? So we have cost, volumes. Do libraries even have encyclopedia sets these days? Maybe. That's probably the only place you'll ever see them. So the original cost is $112 to replace 2 volumes. We want to know how much for 5 volumes. So think about, where does the 5 go? Does it go up here or does it go down here? Well, if you look at your labels, that's cost, that's volumes. So it's 5, goes right here. And we'll put C. So this 2 doesn't go into 5. So let me show you your 2 potential methods for this. I'll show you the standard method, and then I'll show you my preferred method. Actually, the standard method is pretty easy. The standard method is to cross multiply. So C times 2, so 2C, equals 5 times 112. One, 2 times 5. Is $560. To get the C by itself, divide both sides by 2. Let's see, 560 divided by 2. 2 goes into 5 one time. Bring down the 6. 2 goes into 16 8 times. 8 times 2 is 16. We still have another digit. Bring that down. 2 goes into 0 times. So that gives us 180. The other option would be to reduce that, because that's reducible. I could reduce them both by 2. So if I reduce that by 2, I get 1. If I reduce that by 2, I get 56. So then I end up with 56 over 1 equals C over 5. 1 times 5 is 5. 56 times 5 is, let's see, wait. So what would you do if you had done this and both of your answers were different? What would you do? Would you assume that one of these methods was bad? Or would you go back and see if you could figure out what is the problem? And actually, when I go back and I look at this 560 divided by 2, and I think, does it make sense that 180 is half of 560? Because that rounds up to 200. 200 plus 200 is 400. That's definitely much bigger. So I noticed that my mistake's got to be in the division. I look over here, because you haven't noticed, I already figured this out, because you can see I whited it out. And I see that 2 goes into 4, not 1 time, but 2 times. That is called a careless mistake. I wasn't necessarily being careless, but I did make a mistake, and that is why it's called a careless mistake, because I know what 4 divided by 2 is. And so whenever someone tells you that you made a careless mistake, don't assume that it means that they're accusing you of not being careful. That's the type of mistake that it's called, because it's something that means it's something that you already know, but you weren't being careful. And I wasn't being as careful as I should have, obviously. So anyhow, back to this. Our 2 methods did work out the same. The cost of 5 missing volumes is, indeed, 280 books. So I've shown you 3 different methods. The method that always works, always works, is cross multiplication. That's always going to be effective. You can't always reduce the way I did to be able to do equivalent fractions. You can't always do equivalent fractions because originally 2 didn't go into 5, but you can always do that method. It's just that that can be tedious. So if you can come up with a better way that's not so tedious, then I suggest you use that one. All right, so back to this one. This one is your simple page, just getting practice. Back to this page. This is your simple page, just getting practice on making sure that you put them in the right order and you set them up correctly. And then this is the page where you're actually solving proportionate ratios to answer real legitimate life issues.